The plane lost all control at 15,000 feet. The pilot had given up. Then a little girl did the impossible. Flight 9821, do you copy? The air traffic controller's voice crackled through the headset, tense and urgent. Mayday, mayday, flight 9821. We've lost flight control. Systems are glitching. The captain is down. Repeat, Captain Harris is unconscious, Ryan shouted, his voice shaking as he struggled to keep the aircraft level. A deafening thunderclap boomed just outside the cockpit, followed by another violent jolt as the plane dipped sharply to the left. The cockpit lit up in a flashing red. Stall warning, the monitor screamed. Panels flickered, lights dimmed, then surged back to life with a sickening hiss. Ryan clutched the yoke, sweat pouring down his temples, his pulse racing like a war drum in his ears. His eyes darted across the gauges, most of which were no longer responding. Hydraulics are failing. I'm trying manual override. Behind him, Captain Harris's body slumped against the console, a small streak of blood trailing from his temple where he had slammed into the metal casing during the earlier turbulence. Ryan's hands gripped tighter. This was only his third commercial flight as a co-pilot. The simulator training, the hours of checklists, it all paled in the face of this chaos. This can't be real, he muttered, then louder. I need direction. What's the alternate landing plan? The radio was momentarily silent, then crackled back. Try rerouting to secondary autopilot. If unresponsive, you must regain control manually. Do what you were trained for, son. Ryan closed his eyes for half a second, trying to force calm into his mind, but it was like holding back a tidal wave with a paper shield. The altimeter was spiraling. They were dropping fast. 15,000 feet and falling. Down in the main cabin, chaos reigned. Passengers screamed. Some prayed, others clung to loved ones or their seats. Luggage compartments had burst open, and oxygen masks dangled from the overhead, swinging like haunting pendulums. In row 2F, Julia Anderson sat ramrod straight, her expression unreadable, her mind calculating. Her arm encircled her daughter, 6-year-old Emma, who sat in eerie silence, clutching a small plush airplane. Julia's blonde hair framed her face, not a strand out of place despite the storm around her. Her suit was tailored, her heels polished, but there was a quiet storm behind her sharp blue eyes. Emma tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mommy. Julia didn't look at her. She was watching the cabin crew, wide-eyed and panicking. Mommy, Emma said again more firmly. I think I can help. Julia finally looked down. Baby, stay buckled. This is going to be over soon. Emma shook her head slowly. No, it won't. I saw the way we turned. The pilot doesn't know how to fix it. But I do. Julia's breath caught. Emma, no, don't. But Emma was already unbuckling, slipping past the attendants who were trying to regain order. She moved swiftly for her age, weaving between legs and stepping over bags until she reached the cockpit door, which was ajar from the commotion. Inside, Ryan was bracing against another wave of turbulence when he heard a soft voice behind him. I've done this before. I know what to do. I can help. Ryan spun around. He blinked. Standing at the cockpit door was a tiny girl. Brown curls, a gray hoodie, bare feet, and the calmest pair of eyes he'd seen all day. What? Who? How did you get in here? He asked, stunned. I'm Emma, she said, stepping forward confidently. I'm 6. I play on my mom's flight simulator. It's really good. I know where everything is. Ryan stared, half expecting a hidden camera crew to pop out and yell that this was some twisted prank. But the terror in his gut told him otherwise. The girl wasn't joking. I know this system, she continued. You can't recover from the stall unless you shift the aileron manually and reduce throttle. The left panel there. She pointed to a secondary console. Ryan hesitated. I'm not joking, Emma said. If we don't do it now, we'll keep spinning. Another violent tremor rocked the cockpit. He didn't have time. All right, he said, stepping aside just enough for her to reach the controls. Show me. Emma climbed into the captain's chair, her tiny hands surprisingly sure as she touched the panel. Throttle to 30%. No more, she instructed. Stabilizer trim reset here. No, a little to the left, Ryan obeyed without thinking. For a terrifying moment, nothing changed. Then the descent slowed. The tilt evened out. Ryan checked the instruments. Altitude holding. Heading stabilized. How? I told you, Emma said, glancing at him with a shy smile. I've done this before on the simulator. Over and over. Mommy made it for me. Ryan exhaled hard. Adrenaline still surging through his system. He glanced toward the cockpit door, now crowded with 2 flight attendants and a stunned air marshal. Emma ignored them all. We need to radio the tower. Tell them we're back on manual control. Ryan grabbed the radio. Flight 9821. We've regained partial manual control. Situation: under control, assisted by a very small, very brilliant passenger. Say again, the controller crackled. Ryan allowed himself the ghost of a smile. Just get us a runway. She'll guide me the rest of the way. He looked over at Emma, who nodded solemnly. Back in the cabin, Julia stood frozen near the cockpit entrance, her heart pounding. Now, watching Emma in the captain's seat, so confident and poised, her fear transformed into something else entirely. Wonder, awe, and the smallest, most painful pinch of guilt for never seeing this coming. The passengers had stopped screaming. The plane had leveled. A hush began to fall. In the cockpit, Ryan looked down at his tiny co-pilot. All right, Captain Emma. Let's land this bird. Emma giggled softly. Okay, let's fly. The clouds parted just enough to reveal the narrow strip of concrete below. A military airstrip, empty and waiting, carved like a lifeline in the middle of green and gray. Flight 9821 cleared for emergency landing, the tower confirmed. Wind steady, ground crews on standby. Ryan steadied the yoke, breathing hard. Copy that. Beside him, Emma stared straight ahead. Flaps full, she said softly. Throttle down slowly. Gear confirmed. Ryan followed each command. They moved in sync, an unlikely pair, a 27-year-old co-pilot and a 6-year-old girl. The aircraft began its final descent. Tremors still shook the frame, but the spin was gone. Left correction, 2 degrees, Emma instructed. We're drifting. Ryan adjusted. The wheels hit the ground with a jolt, a bounce, a skid. Then stability. The plane rolled down the strip, slowing steadily. Silence. Then cheers erupted. The cabin burst into life with applause, cries, and laughter. Ryan exhaled sharply, his hands shaking. Emma turned to him. We did it! He smiled. You did it. The intercom clicked. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan's voice rang out. This is First Officer Ryan Miller. We've made an emergency landing. And it wasn't just me. A 6-year-old girl saved this plane. The cockpit door opened. Julia rushed in, dropping to her knees in front of Emma and wrapping her in trembling arms. I'm okay, Mommy, Emma whispered. Julia pulled back, scanning her daughter's face, then turned to Ryan, her eyes meeting his. Thank you, she said quietly. Ryan shook his head. No. She's the one who saved us all. Outside, emergency crews surrounded the aircraft. As passengers disembarked, shaken but safe, news cameras snapped. That girl, a man said, pointing toward the cockpit. That little girl saved us. Disbelief turned into astonishment. History had just been made. The airstrip had settled into a quiet hum. Ryan stepped down from the aircraft, bypassing the cameras. He spotted them near the terminal entrance. Julia stood tall in a crisp cream-colored blazer, her face composed like stone. Beside her, Emma sat on a bench, sipping from a bottle of water, her plush airplane clutched in one hand. Excuse me, Ryan said gently. Julia turned, her eyes narrowed in evaluation. You're the co-pilot, she said coolly. Yes. Ryan Miller. There was a pause. I just wanted to say something to your daughter. And to you. She's tired. I won't keep her long. Emma had already looked up, a smile spreading across her face. Ryan, she called, hopping off the bench and flinging her arms around him. He bent down to hug her back. I knew you'd come, she said into his shoulder. He smiled. I told you we'd fly again. When they separated, Ryan turned to Julia. I'm not here to take credit for anything. I just wanted you to know I didn't save that plane. Your daughter did. She told me what to do. I was just her hands. Julia studied him, her eyes flickering with something unspoken. No cameras? She asked. He shook his head. Not my thing. And you don't want credit? Ryan smiled sadly. It was never mine to take. Julia's guard slipped for the first time. I don't know many men who would say that, she said quietly. I'm not most men, he replied. Emma skipped back over, wrapping one arm around Ryan's waist and the other around Julia's. Can we all go get ice cream? She asked brightly. Ryan laughed. Julia stared at her daughter, then at Ryan, and finally she smiled, a real warm smile. In her eyes was a quiet gratitude and something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The story exploded. Captain Emma trended worldwide. But as admiration soared, so did the questions. Is this bravery or parental negligence? Where were the adults? Child endangerment disguised as heroism. The narrative soured. News vans circled their street. Julia found Emma curled on the couch one morning. Mom, she whispered, did I do something wrong? That night the storm Julia had been holding back finally broke. You should have stopped her, she shouted at Ryan. She's a child. She asked to help, he said quietly, and she did help. She's being ripped apart. Julia's voice cracked. They're blaming her. Me. Us. Unseen at the top of the stairs, Emma heard every word and crept back to her room to cry. The next day, Ryan walked into a live television interview. He looked straight into the camera. She didn't pilot a plane, he said calmly. She was a child who had trained herself on a simulator her mother built, who remembered what no adult could under pressure. She used her mind, her voice, and her heart to help. That's not endangerment. That's bravery. Her mother is brilliant. She raised her daughter to think, to speak up, to believe she could help. Isn't that what we want for our children? The room fell silent. Within an hour, the narrative shifted again. Thank you, Julia trended. That night, Julia found the clip online. His words hit deeper than any apology could. When Ryan's car pulled into the driveway, she walked out to meet him. You didn't have to say those things, she said. I know, he replied. But you meant them. Every word. She reached out and took his hand. This time she did not let go. The weeks that followed settled into a new normal. Then the news came. Ryan had been reassigned to a new international route, months away at a time. Leaving in 5 days, his text read. I'll stop by before I go. The night before his departure, they sat on the porch. Emma chased fireflies in the yard. When are you coming back? Julia asked. I don't know. Maybe in a few months. She looked at him, her gaze steady. Don't forget, she said, her voice low but clear. There's someone here who will always be waiting. The next morning, Ryan knelt to hug Emma goodbye. She pressed a folded piece of paper into his hand. It's for the plane, she said, so you don't forget us. Alone on the tarmac, he opened it. Inside was a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, one in a pilot's hat, one with yellow hair and a laptop, and one in a tiara. The caption in wobbly letters read, Captain, Mom, Princess. He tucked it into his flight jacket, over his heart. 2 months later, there was a knock at the door. Julia opened it. There he stood, windblown and travel-worn. He didn't speak, he just smiled. Behind her, a squeal rang out. Ryan! Emma launched herself into his arms. Julia leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, her eyes shimmering. You're late. Still holding Emma, he shrugged with a grin. Turbulence. She chuckled, stepping aside to let him in. Welcome home. Months passed, quietly but surely. Ryan transferred to a city route, renting a house just 2 blocks away. He picked Emma up from school, cooked with Julia, and learned to love the way her laughter filled the kitchen. They didn't label what they were, but they were becoming something whole. One morning, Emma burst through the door with a form from her backpack. My parent-teacher conference invitation. Julia took it, her eyes scanning to the bottom line. Parent/guardian, Ryan Miller. She paused. Emma watched her. Is that okay? Julia smiled softly and kissed the top of her head. It's perfect. On a golden Sunday afternoon, the 3 of them went to the park. Julia sat on a picnic blanket, her head resting on Ryan's shoulder, their fingers laced together. They watched Emma run across the grass, her newest paper airplane in hand. "Let's fly again, Captain," Emma shouted. Ryan stood, helping Julia to her feet. He looked into her eyes, his voice low. "Next time, let's fly to somewhere special. Just us. Our honeymoon." Julia blinked, her breath catching. Then she nodded, her smile spreading slowly, lighting her whole face. "Yes," she whispered. Emma raced toward them, wrapping her arms around their waists. Her airplane caught a gust of wind and soared high, spinning through the amber sky. They stood there together, wrapped in each other, as the sun dipped low behind them. Sometimes the safest landing is into someone's heart. Thank you for joining us for this unforgettable journey of courage, healing, and the kind of love that changes lives. If this story touched your heart, made you tear up, or reminded you that family can be found in the most unexpected places, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Here on Soul Stirring Stories, we bring you powerful, emotional tales that warm your heart and stir your soul. Leave a comment below. What part of Emma's story moved you the most? Like, share, and send this to someone who believes in miracles made by love and kindness. And be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss the next story that might just change your day or your life. Until next time, keep believing, keep loving, and remember, sometimes the safest landing is into someone's heart. See you in the next story.